the Philippines where sunlight gleams, Brian, Tess, and family dreams. By the shorelines, kids at play in a tropical bright array.
Good morning, YouTubers. Welcome back to our channel. I'm Brian, this is Tess. Before I begin, I need to give a shout out to Derek Carter from Australia, our newest member. Thank you, Derek, for becoming part of the AITP family. And thank you to everybody who's subscribed. Again, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please smash that subscribe button down in the corner and help us grow our channel. We've been vlogging now for just on 10 months. Our goal is to try and hit 3,000 subs in 12 months. Not sure if we're going to make that, but we're pushing hard to do it. So today's video is basically, can you get quality medical care in the Philippines? So the answer is varied depending on area. If you're in somewhere like Manila, Manila I think has 2 international level hospitals, one in Taguig I think and one in Quezon, but that's the only high quality international style hospital in the Philippines which has all the medical equipment like CT scan machines, MRIs. A lot of places have x-ray machines, of course, but in most of the smaller cities you'll find very basic equipment in the hospitals. So if you're planning to move here and you have private health insurance back in your home country, I would suggest keeping that, because if you need serious medical treatment, I would suggest going back there to get it done. And I'll give you a few examples and reasons why I say this. Here in Masbate City, Tess's mother a couple of weeks ago got bitten by one of the pigs, the baboy, bit her on the leg and opened her leg up quite drastically. The wound was about 3 or 4 inches long and it was opened up and required stitches. It really needed stitching. She didn't get to the hospital for a couple of days. We drove back out there and picked her up and brought her back to the city to get medical treatment, and we dropped her at the MC private hospital here in Masbate City, and she went in to see the doctor. And what happened, babe?
There is no doctor available.
No doctor available. In the private hospital, there was no doctor available. This was daytime. During the day, a weekday, no doctor available. So they referred her to a private doctor's surgery to get her rabies injections and tetanus injections and stuff for the wound. The doctor looked at it and said it should have been stitched, and because it had been a few days since the injury, he wanted to re-slice it and stitch it back up. And she just looked at him and said, "No, I'm old now, don't worry about the scar, just let it heal." So but there was no doctor available to provide the medical care. And then just 2 days ago, Tess and I had to go back to Legazpi. Tess had lost her passport and we needed to replace that. Plus she had to get her surname changed. The old passport was in her maiden name, so she needed to transfer that to her married name. I decided to get a visa extension while I was there. By the way, they've stopped the 6-month visa extensions for tourists here. They've canned them completely. You can only get maximum 2 months at a time now. We'll talk about that on another video, but just a little information for anybody coming here thinking they can get a 6-month extension. It won't happen anymore. So I got a visa extension for 2 months while I was there and collected my ACR card, so which is my alien certificate of registration. So for those people who don't believe in aliens, I'm an alien and I have a card to prove it. So anyway, we got back on the ferry, arrived back at the port here about 6 p.m, and our eldest son Kyle, who a lot of you have seen on previous videos, was missing his mum and dad, and he was up on the bed at the window here. The windows here are what they call jealousy glass. or what we call in Australia louver windows. So they open up. He'd opened the windows up and was looking outside, and he was holding on to a piece of the glass. And my nickname for Kyle, by the way, is Bam Bam, because he's quite aggressive and very strong. So when he was told to get away from the window, he decided to throw a tantrum, got annoyed, and actually pulled on the glass, snapped the piece of glass, the jealousy glass, and it came down across his arm and sliced his arm. Fortunately, it was only a small wound, about 1 centimetre slice, but it was open about 1/2 centimetre and required a single stitch. In my opinion, it needed to be stitched. So I said to the girls, if I walk into the hospital with you, they'll see a foreigner, the prices will double or triple for getting anything done. So Tess and her sister took Kyle, got in the tricycle, went to MC Private Hospital. This was around 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. Arrived at the hospital, and guess what? What happened, babe?
There's no doctor available.
No doctor available. Again, remember, this is a private hospital, no doctor available. Now, there are 2 hospitals here in Masbate City. I think there's 106,000 people is the population of the city here, and the private hospital didn't have a doctor available. So they got in the tricycle and went to the provincial public hospital system here, and guess what happened, babe?
It's the same, no doctor available.
No doctor available. So 2 hospitals in a city of over 100,000 people, and there is not a single doctor on duty available in the hospitals. And the girls said there were patients lined up from the admin desk basically all the way out to the street waiting because there was no doctor available. So they got referred to go to another private doctor's clinic, which was about 10 minutes out of the city by tricycle. So they put Kyle in the tricycle, they drove 10 minutes out of the city to the doctor's surgery, got there, and guess what?
The doctor is having dinner. If we can wait, then we said yeah, we can. Then after a few minutes, they said the doctor is on meeting. Then I asked how long before he come back. The nurse said they don't know.
No clue. We can't give you a time as to when the doctor will be back. Gone for dinner, now he's in a meeting. This is 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday night. In a meeting with who? The medical system here is failing the people of Masbate City drastically. And as I say, this is not the same all across the Philippines. When you get to your bigger cities like Legazpi, first class city, I'm sure the medical system there is much more up to standard. So you really need to be careful. If you're planning to come and live here, you need to research the area where you're going to live. How far are you going to be from a hospital and medical facilities? And do those medical facilities have adequate equipment and staff to actually provide healthcare? If you arrived at the hospital on Wednesday night after a motorcycle accident or something with life-threatening injuries, you're going to die. There's no doctors there to take care of you. It's just simply not good enough. Last year, one of Tess's cousins presented back in Balud at the hospital there with what I believe was a tetanus infection. His neck was locked and his jaw was locked, and he had a cut or an injury from some dirty metal previous weeks before. So he presented at the hospital. They couldn't diagnose him. Now this is the other issue, is that even if you have hospitals staffed with doctors and nurses, are they actually competent and qualified enough to do the job they're paid to do? There's a lot of misdiagnosis in this country. A lot of doctors are not capable of even diagnosing an issue. They had him in there for 4 days, couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, and he actually died in the hospital, and noted on his medical certificate as cause of death was unknown. Now, I was here just visiting at the time. Actually, it was 2 years ago, because when I was back in Australia and I was visiting my doctor, I mentioned his symptoms to her, and she said, my God, he had a tetanus infection. I said, that was my first thought. So I'm not trained medically at all. I have zero I have a first aid certificate, but I have zero medical training as a nurse or a doctor. And my guess was that he had a tetanus infection. Had they given him a tetanus injection, they may have saved his life. And the number of people who die in this country from tetanus infection is huge compared to anywhere in the West. So make sure if you're coming here, you've got all your vaccines for tetanus, rabies, all that sort of stuff. You really need to make sure you have done everything you can to make your trip as safe as possible, because the diagnosis here can be way off, completely wrong. And I do recall, I also watch another vlogger from the US called Paul in the Philippines, Old Dog New Tricks. Not sure if any of you guys watch him, but I do recall on a video just recently where he was talking about not one but three, I believe, of his friends or guys that he knows that had cancer and were not diagnosed with cancer in a hospital here anywhere. So you really, can you get quality medical care here in the Philippines? I don't believe so. My answer would be no. You can get basic medical care, but if you need quality medical care and you have a serious illness, disease, injury, you need to be in a Western hospital. So as I said before, if you have private health insurance in your own country, I would suggest that you maintain that while you're here, because if you need quality medical care, I would suggest get on a plane, fly back to your country and get your medical care. And I know for a fact that if someone's qualified as a doctor here in the Philippines and they move to Australia and migrate to Australia, the Australian government does not recognise the doctor's degree from the Philippines. If you want to practice as a doctor in Australia, they need to go back to medical school and do another 7 years training to be qualified as a doctor in Australia, because the standard of training here is not high enough to be recognised in Australia. So just a few local stories, and yeah, it just annoyed me because the funding here is not going into employing doctors. One of the previous apartments we lived in, we had a doctor living next door, and I know she was the night shift doctor at the provincial hospital, and she was in a relationship with a guy from the UK. Now they packed up a few months after we moved. They packed up and moved to the UK. So she's gone over there. So they lost their night shift doctor almost 6 months ago from the provincial public hospital here. And as far as I'm aware, then they haven't replaced them. So, you know, what's happening? The government need to do more here in the Philippines. There needs to be more funding spent to employ more doctors, more nurses. They're understaffed. The staff that are there do the best they can with what they have, but it's just not adequate enough. They really need to spend the money where it's supposed to be spent. People are paying for their medical care. Where are those funds going? That's my question, is where is the money that's being paid for the medical care here in the hospitals actually being spent? Because it's not being spent on doctors and nurses and getting the place staffed to take care of the people. Again, as I said before, if you're in a first-class city rather than a fourth-class city, then you'll obviously get more adequate healthcare. But basic healthcare is all I would want to use here in the Philippines personally. Touch wood, I don't ever have to use them. So let's see how that goes. But make sure you're covered. Take care of yourselves, guys. Do your research. If you're going to live in a out-of-the-way provincial area, and I know sometimes it's not easy for you to make a choice like that because you have met a Filipina and her family are all living in a specific area and you're going to get married and go and live in that area, then you don't have much of a choice. But I would suggest having a discussion with your Filipina and thinking about maybe moving to an area where if depending on your age and your health, if you know you're going to need healthcare, I would suggest moving and living in an area where you have more adequate healthcare and just visiting family on weekends or something. So I hope that information has been of some help, guys. That's my story for this week. We haven't been back out to the land. It's been raining quite frequently out there, so we haven't been able to get anything done. Again, as soon as we can, we'll be doing some more videos of the off-grid work there and get those posted for everyone. Thank you again to everyone who has joined just recently. Thank you to all those who have been with us since day one. We really appreciate your support. Without you guys, this channel wouldn't be possible. Don't forget, we always have our inexpensive memberships available, so you can join up and be part of the AITP family for less than 10 cents a day and help support our project here. You can also, if you wish to help us out and support us, you can donate through PayPal, or you can donate through Super Thanks here on YouTube. So until next time, guys, from an Australian in the Philippines and a Filipina in the Philippines,
Peace out.
peace out, guys.